In the previous video, I introduced you to the difference between arguing to destroy and arguing to persuade. Today, we're looking at persuasion. You don't want to win in the sense that there's a loser. You want to persuade someone to see your point of view and act on it.
Win, win, win.
Aristotle called this rhetoric, the art of war. Just kidding, the art of persuasion. Here, I employed humor to put you at ease and open you up to my argument. It's very difficult to hate people you laugh with or even at. Rhetoric is the art of informing, persuading, or motivating your audience. My friend Dwayne ended up in the ER with chest pain and difficulty breathing on Monday. He called me from the hospital to ask if I could bring him his charger because his cell phone was about to die. I swung by his house, grabbed his charger, and drove to the hospital. When I walked into Dwayne's room, I could tell he had a rough night.
Jack, my boy, come closer so that I can look on you with my own eyes.
He knows my love for Star Wars.
The ambulance took me to the hospital last night, and I was taken to this room by a beautiful nurse. She wouldn't give me her number. She was the last soul I saw before you came to save me, Jack. I pushed the nurse's button, Jack, and heard that annoying ding for 5 hours, Jack. 5 hours with no help. 5 hours of worrying, being alone. I wet my bed, Jack.
Really?
No, not really. But I could have, Jack. Jack, my boy. At different points in the night, I'd hear movement at the door. I'd call out for help, but hear no reply. I'm gonna have to make them an offer they can't refuse.
Right after he finished telling me what happened, a nurse walked into the room. Then I realized the other reason Dwayne asked me to come. He was being mistreated and needed an advocate. He needed a jailbreak. The nurse turned off his alert, and Dwayne explained to the nurse that he'd gone 5 hours without help. The nurse apologized for the night staff and assured him that she would be assisting anything he needed from that point on. She wouldn't give him her number, though. Dwayne had been told he could go home the night prior, but was never released. Never had the heart monitor, IV, or oximeter removed. I asked the nurse how long until he could be discharged, and she said he needed a doctor's release. Dwayne explained that he'd already been released by the doctor in charge last night, but the nurse kindly smiled, nodded, and left saying, "I'll see what I can do," as she closed the curtain. That was the last time we saw her. Answers? Could we get some answers, please? This was a situation that we needed to win, but not win destroy, win persuade. In this video, I'm going to show you the steps I took to persuade the staff to release my friend. But before we get to the payoff, the solution to the problem, you need to know the principles of persuasion, the steps we took to escape. My name is Jack, and I want to welcome you to Critical Thinker, where you'll learn how to become brilliant. Throughout my undergrad, graduate, and doctoral education, I've discovered 12 realms of critical thinking.
Open your eyes.
In this video, we're deepening our knowledge of arguing to persuade. To help us argue, debate, and persuade better, we're going to be taking some notes from Aristotle. Did you know part of Alexander the Great's success in war and politics was because Aristotle was his tutor? Aristotle's rules will help you persuade people to your side, influence an outcome. They'll act as a weapon in your arsenal to deploy at a moment's notice. You never know how important critical thinking is until you're in a mess and you don't have it.
You can fly, you can fight, and you can...
Prepare your critical thinking skills now, so when the misfortune or opportunity arises, you'll know how to respond as an act of nature and instinct. Number 1, research. Here, you're generating ideas on a subject, exploring, you're discovering. It's messy, it's a lot of work, and connecting data can be difficult when you've got strings pointing every which way. Research doesn't move in a straight line. And as a detective, everything counts as potential evidence. Check out the video where we cover this on rules of evidence. Number 2, thesis, the claim or position. It's a focused statement that communicates the truth or proposal that we want our audience to do, accept, or act upon. What's your purpose, your reasons, your goals, your objectives? Are you supporting a cause, promoting a change, refuting a theory? How will you stimulate interest, win agreement? What's your motivation, your impetus?
What's my motivation?
What's your drive, the incentive? What are your presuppositions, the things that precede the text, information, or evidence? Number 3, the subject, the topic, what I know about it, what others have said about it, who the experts are, what kind of evidence is applicable to develop the argument. Number 4, know your audience, know what they know what they believe, what do they value, what do they expect? Will it be formal, factual, objective? Will it be familiar, anecdotal? Is it personal?
This is the Fireside Chat.
Is it emotional? What is the audience's context? What perspectives is the audience bringing to the table? What time, place, occasion? Where are you delivering the talk? What are the cultural issues and current events influencing the audience? What vocabulary do they use? What's their level of education?
Gee, I can't wait till I go to hikes. Well,
How will they disagree based upon differing perspectives? What are the best arguments on the other side? Have you addressed those concerns? Are there points of possible misunderstanding? Number 5, style. These are your choice of words, the composition, the syntax, the diction. How do you want to appear to them? An authority figure will present themselves much differently than a friend would.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
And each has benefits and drawbacks depending upon the goal. Think about the persona that you might take on. Are you a poet, a scholar, a critic, the expert? Are you a concerned citizen, a prospective employee? What approach will have the best impact on your audience? Number 6, order. As you've exhausted the sources, captured the audience, the goal, the voice, next you need to arrange the facts in an orderly presentation. What's relevant to the case? What's the structure, the organization? Number 7, memory. Today, this is antiquated. Most of our interaction is either teleprompter.
I like a do da cha-cha.
Or partially read from notes. But some of the best presentations are delivered with no aids because they're full of passion, emotion, preparation, and expertise, which often results in tremendous points of persuasion.
Most of us have multiple notebooks and notes and books and things like that in front of us. Can you hold up what you've been referring to and answering our questions? Is there anything on it?
the letterhead that says United States Senate.
That's impressive.
Number 8, delivery or voice. What intonation, inflection, the gestures you'll use.
And don't underestimate the importance of body language.
Your posture, eye contact, facial expressions. Now that the groundwork has been laid, let's get to the meat and potatoes. How do we get others to accept our point of view, identify with us, defend us, fight on our behalf, agree with us, and do something about that agreement? We appeal to their reason, their emotions, and our shared character, values, and credibility. These are the 3 persuasive appeals: reason or logos. This appeal harnesses the intellect in forming judgments with logic. Check out my logic videos because it's the foundation of all thought and will really bolster the persuasiveness of your arguments. Know the rules of logic and the fallacies that break them. Consider some of these approaches that I'm about to share with you to bolster the rationality of your arguments. If these aren't familiar to you, you can check out our other videos or look them up. Argue by induction, argue by deduction, and use careful syllogisms, premises leading to conclusions. Know the definitions of terms relevant to the field you're persuading in. Are there other interpretations? Make sure you don't lack understanding or have a blind spot. Argue by analogy. Tease out consequences, persuade by cause and effect relationships, incorporate testimony, use precedent, draw a comparison from something that has already occurred. Lawyers use old cases to establish precedent all the time. Use history and text, literature, archaeology, case studies, research journals, interpretation, expert opinions, for and against. Be sure your argument follows chronologically. Be aware of cultural beliefs and traditions. Take the legs out from under your opponent by offering their counterargument before they get to it. Then refute it. Explain the opposing position fairly. Then reason toward agreement. Whatever you do, do not strawman. Moving from logos, we're introducing pathos, or emotional appeals. We're trying to generate emotions in our audience. We want to shape their responses. Aristotle held that the emotional brain is like an elephant and the rational brain is like a small boy riding on top. If we let emotion reign, nothing logic can do will bring the beast under control again. So we can't abandon emotion in ourselves or others. Logic isn't everything and emotions aren't nothing. How do we persuade with emotions? Sensory images and figurative language? We want to evoke a feeling.
What exactly did he put into the chest?
Your mind.
You've seen this in my videos since Critical Thinker started. Anecdotes, storytelling, a narrative to engage the audience. Remember the hospital story we started with? How's that conflict going to end? How did it make you feel? It made me feel somewhat helpless, depressed, and sorry for the experience my friend was having. There's also a sense of injustice because we go to hospitals to get help when our bodies aren't operating the way they should. We go there for experts and care, and my friend was receiving neither. Bolster rapport with humor. Put your audience at ease and make them open to your argument. Diction. Carefully select words that have an emotional connotation. Choose the goodest words to make your people hearers feel connected. See what I did there with humor? Now you've opened your brain to manipulation. Just kidding, it doesn't work like that. Or does it? Okay, let's get back on track. Needs. Appealing to the needs all humans have in common: physical, psychological, social, the ability to think quick on your feet to help yourself and others escape the hospital. One caveat: be careful in utilizing emotions, for when you appeal to emotions solely to make your case, you are manipulating your audience. This is a form of propaganda. Welcome to the 21st century. We've looked at logos, pathos. Now let's turn to ethos, or ethical appeals. This establishes credibility, character, and benevolence. We do this by sharing values, finding common ground, and identifying with our audience. Credibility is displaying honesty, knowledge of, and respect for the audience. Authority is emphasizing one's expertise, their knowledge, their experience, and training in regards to the subject. Even showing the research time involved with a subject counts towards the speaker's authority. Be careful not to come across as arrogant, though. Trustworthiness is being fair in your representation of the opposition's argument and criticisms. Show clear motives, convincing the audience that you're not serving your own interests, but theirs. The rhetorical triangle derived from Aristotle. The subject relies on logos, logic, and reason. The audience is moved by pathos, emotions, and feelings. The speaker appeals to ethos, credibility, ethics, and benevolence. So how do we put this all together in the real world of escaping the hospital? After the nurse left and closed the curtain, I slid it open all the way. I wanted to be able to see the staff, and I wanted them to see us. 40 minutes passed as Dwayne and I talked shop. Eventually, the doctor appeared, checked his vitals, prescribed some medicine, gave him the second go-ahead to go home. This supposedly set things in motion to take the wires off and get him free, but time marched on, and we were forgotten. Again. Eventually, a nurse peeked his head in the room, asking for someone by a different last name. I took the opportunity to get immediate action and one step closer to our goal, my friend's freedom. I asked, "My friend's been discharged, are you here to release him?" After he already told me that he's there for someone else with a different last name. The young man said, "No, they must have given me the wrong room number. I'm here to release someone else." I quickly responded with, "Well, while you're here, could you get this stuff off him? It shouldn't take too long and he'd so appreciate your help." He hesitated as he looked on at my raised eyebrows, half smile, and open hands, the universal sign for help.
Please, sir, I want some more.
He said, "Of course, I can do that." We thanked him, one step closer. After the nurse left, I walked out of the room and stood in the hallway with my hands at my sides, feet close together. I can be imposing, and my natural stance is arms crossed or on my hips. Those poses communicate confrontation or threat. I intentionally stood in a way that made me appear docile and friendly, as I held my eyebrows slightly raised and smile half-masked. Full mask smile for me is like the Cheshire Cat, and I look more crazy than happy. My presence in the middle of the hall generated attention from a nurse who I invited into our room. The nurse was the decision maker, or at least carried himself in such a way. He told us that he was working hard to get us released and knew about our situation. We thanked him. To that he said, "I'm waiting on your release from the cardiologist." "Oh," I said, "why the cardiologist? He's already been released by Dr. Such and Such." He told us, well, I understand that, but the cardiology department put a hold on his departure until his monitor's set up. That's kind of strange since we don't do that in the ER. I asked, why don't you do that? And he told me, that requires admitting him to the hospital and his orders are to be released. They're probably having him pick up a monitor at the pharmacy. I just found the key for my friend's release. The nurse left and said he'd be back in a minute. To that, Dwayne asked if he was sure he was going to be back in 60 seconds. A minute in the hospital can obviously be up to 5 hours. The nurse laughed and said I probably shouldn't be giving specific times, should I? He left and closed the curtain, to which I promptly opened. I waited 10 minutes, then took action. I watched this nurse talking about his weekend with another nurse as they stood by an IV machine, which I later learned is called an infusion pump. I walked up to him, interrupted their conversation, and said, "You're probably not aware, but my friend pushed the call button last night for a nurse to help him and went 5 hours with no visit. His call beep rung in his ear for 5 hours, so his patience is not where it should be. I'll do what I can to keep him happy, but he's looking for a way to escape and there's only so much I can do." To that, he laughed. Dwayne's been released by 2 doctors, the one on duty last night and Dr. Such and Such this morning. You told me that we're waiting on cardiology to release him, but your system says he needs a monitor. We can't receive a monitor unless he's admitted, so are you going to admit him? He told me, no, we won't be admitting him. I said, if you can't give him a monitor in the ER and you won't be admitting him, our only option is to discharge him. He replied, you know, you're right, but I can't in good conscience discharge him with a yield sign on the system.
You didn't say the magic word.
Please!
And they're not responding. I said, if that's the case, can you at least come take his IV out? He'd be a little more comfortable and it'd bring him some peace. He said, oh, we still got that in? Why don't I start the process to discharge him so you're all set to leave when they give us the go-ahead? Elated, I thanked him. As soon as he was done removing the IV, a second nurse came in and gave him his release papers. Jailbreak.
Oh, they're so awesome!
Doctors and nurses have difficult jobs, stresses that we probably couldn't handle on a weekly basis. Sometimes priorities of severity need to be made, especially in the ER. I get that. People can be left behind, neglected, or forgotten by mistake. Sometimes you'll need to speak up for yourself, plead your case, and ask for mercy, attention, for justice.
Not supposed to be here.
The art of persuasion can help you get there faster. The persuasive tactics Dwayne and I employed in this scenario worked, but it was a risk. They might not have worked, and we could still be in the hospital looking for our next opportunity to break out. I sure am glad we took the risks to persuade the warden. To recap, know the principles for persuasion: research, the thesis or purpose, the subject, your audience, the style, memory, voice. After that, appeal in 3 ways: logos, pathos, and ethos. Reason, emotion, and ethics, blending them together to create a masterful dish the audience can't ignore. You may just need them to negotiate a hostage situation with the hospital. The next time you're in the hospital, don't use the principles of persuasion. Just call me, the hospital negotiator. That way, we'll go from the hospital to the jailhouse. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy one of these videos. So click on the screen to up your critical thinking game. And until next time, critical thinkers, think deeply.